And joining us now to discuss Bitcoin price and more is Mike Belshe, CEO of BitGo, an institutional crypto custody and security firm. Hey there, Mike. Good Monday afternoon to you. Would love to hear your outlook on Bitcoin as for the short term in the next 3 months, end of year.
Great to see you again, Christine. Well, look, I mean, I think in the short term, things probably look pretty good right now. As you said in the intro, institutions, individuals, and the like have all been looking for signals that some of the regulatory hurdles that we've seen in the last few months are going to be absolved. And Jay Powell's comments this week certainly very positive. Obviously, there's still more concern, but you can also look at another extreme political regime, in China, where they've banned crypto outright, and this was more or less shrugged off by the Bitcoin industry. And I think this demonstrates that Bitcoin is actually not vulnerable to a single government deciding to turn it off. And I think this is encouraging investors. So for the long term, of course, we've still got all the sound principles of money that comes with Bitcoin fueling its sales.
Interesting. And when stepping back and trying to understand some of the macro factors impacting the price, we did see this bounce on Friday. What was behind that in your view?
It's hard to say if you're trying to find an individual bounce. There could have been news at that time, or it could have been even just large trades in certain ways taking effect. So I don't have a particular prediction on that small of a view. For the long term, I think things are still looking super good.
Do you have a price prediction for the long-term view, end of 22?
End of 22. Well, it'll be up over 100,000. I'm not sure exactly where it'll be. I think we will probably also see a large peak and then a large retreat. So, it's a volatile space. Be prepared for it. If you're in it for the long term, you're all a good ride.
Fair enough. All right. So I wanted to bring up this Twitter conversation that has been gaining some traction. This one from Jill Gunter, VC, and sometimes CoinDesk contributor saying, quote, "Controversial take, not your keys, not your crypto is no longer sage advice for those getting into crypto. Should be, when possible, custody with one of the top 5 exchanges. And if your asset isn't supported, ask yourself if you really understand why you hold it." And I ask you because, you come from an interesting perspective being a crypto institutional custody platform. But Jill is asking for a bit of trouble here. Bitcoiners probably won't like what she's putting forward there, but I wonder what your take on it is.
Well, this has been an age-old question in Bitcoin as to whether you have to hold your own keys or whether, you can rely and trust others. The great thing about Bitcoin is for the first time ever, you have the choice. You never had that choice in the traditional banking system, yet you have it today. So if you do feel capable with the right amount of asset protected on your own, you can do that. At the same time, most non-computer science people feel a little bit challenged about how they would protect large amounts of asset, particularly if it's a significant part of their overall balance sheet, and do they have the capabilities and skills to keep the asset safe for the long term? So it's not surprising that people will turn to banks from time to time. Now, I think she missed on one key point, which is that actually the entire industry needs to build better market structure. You typically never would have an exchange also be the holder of the asset. And trading the asset is one particular activity. Signing up 100,000 new retail users every day is a specific skill. Securing the asset, holding it safe, keeping a secondary check and balance to make sure the balances are all there is the number one way we can make sure that you're not vulnerable should an exchange have a single point of failure issue that loses your coin.
Right, exactly.
So you should use a custodian this point.
We see several times in the news that exchanges have had hacking. They have central points of failure, which is, the whole point of decentralization is to give you that power.
It's not unique to crypto, right? So, Bernie Madoff has been quite public. Like, if his clients had required him to hold their assets at an independent custodian, he could have never perpetrated that fraud. Look, this is just part of what we need to have for market structure. But anyway, to Jill's point, people should have choice. Sometimes they'll choose to store large amounts of asset in a custodian. Sometimes they might hold it on their own. If you're a fiduciary, that is, you're holding someone else's money and you are responsible for it on their behalf, of course you have to be using a bank or custodian. You can't hold that in your sock drawer.
Okay. And finally, I just want to get into El Salvador. You know, they've had a bit of a shaky start in their Bitcoin law rollout. There is rising adoption in the country of Bitcoin, but it's been hampered by technical glitches. They gave everybody $30 worth of Bitcoin on September 7th. It's still not worth the $30 that it was initially. There have been protests, but the silver lining seems to be that the country is finally in the green after buying 700 Bitcoins. What's your assessment of the situation?
Look, I actually don't think it's been nearly as negative as some people want to say it is. As you know, BitGo's helped with some of the security and behind-the-scenes wallet platform work. Bringing up an app with 3 million new users, in a short period of time, often has some struggles. I think they've had a few, but it doesn't seem like there's been any major problems whatsoever. Obviously, the entire public has been watching. This is an historic moment where we, for the first time ever, we have a sovereign state adopting Bitcoin as a legal form of payment. So it's not too surprising that there could be some glitches with that. On the protests and whatnot, Bitcoin has always required education. It is a new model. It may seem scary to some, but time and time again, what we're seeing is as people learn it, as people realize there's a new model, a better way, they usually come over in the end.
So Mike, is BitGo a custodian in El Salvador? And I wonder, what kind of challenges, if so, you're facing?
So we're actually not the custodian. We're not the custodian in this particular rollout, but we provide some of the wallet security technology that they're using within the Chivo application. Obviously they've got a number of issues that they've had to solve in terms of how they handle custody and how they handle distribution. They've got a great team that's been working on that in spite of a few small glitches, but I think it's going pretty well, actually. I think it's going to be a great experiment.